Orphans are the gateway drug into Dynasty. There's so many Dynasty fantasy football players who got their start there by adopting an orphan, a roster that had been abandoned by its previous manager. Today, my guest, Dustin Ludke from FFToday, and I will be talking about orphans and adoption strategies and what to expect when you're expecting. That's next on Dynasty Compass. Welcome to Dynasty Compass. I am your host, Jeff Blaylock, the other Jeff B from Football Guys, and that squeaking noise in the background is my 18-week-old puppy who is rather excited, so we will have some puppy sounds throughout the story today. Hi, baby. But more importantly, though, I do have a different special guest who is not my dog, and that is Dustin Ludke from FFToday. Dustin, thanks so much for joining me this evening, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I mean, I love dogs. I get it. I have a 6-year-old German Shepherd who thinks he's a big baby and still wants to. He's 70 pounds and wants to sit in your lap, but he just can't fit. So I get it. I get the dog. Dogs are great.
Yeah, Bailey's just 30 pounds, but he was 10 when we got him 2 months ago. So
Yep.
he has gotten a lot bigger.
A little bigger, yeah.
Very, very fast. We did not adopt him because I'm allergic to a lot of dogs. We weren't able to go to a shelter and just do that route like a lot of people do. So I always appreciate when people can do that. But we are here to talk about adoptions today, which is one of the weirdest segues I think I've ever done on the show. We are talking about orphans, which is, of course, in the Dynasty world, these are teams whose managers have left for whatever reason. Sometimes they're good reasons, sometimes they're bad reasons, but for whatever the reason, there is a roster that needs a manager, and so that's what we're doing. And Dustin, I know you have done some work in this and a lot of thinking on this. You're even writing a series called Diary of an Orphan, a real-time or real-time adjacent look at how you are rebuilding an orphan that you picked up. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's an article series. The second one just released today as of the day we're recording. I got it out just in time for this recording. Trying to do it in as real-time adjacent as I can. So I made a couple trades in the past 2-3 weeks.
Very good.
Made a big one where I traded away the 101. And so I traded away 101. I got 103 and I got 110. And with that was also, I gave up Charbonnet and got RJ Harvey and I got Isaiah Bond. And so I break down my theory of how I did it in this whole process. But the thought on this article series was do this article series as in real time as possible. Now, obviously, like June, July, if there's no movement, you're not going to see an article because there's nothing to write about. But you'll get an article around the rookie draft, kind of how that went, my thought process, and really kind of give people hey, this is my thought process on how I rebuilt this Dynasty team. Hopefully in a year or two, I'm a contender. Maybe, 2028, 29, I win a championship. And you can see how I got there. So you can go back and go, okay, this is how we got there. Because it's great to go, hey, this is my Dynasty team and I won a championship. But how did I get there? And this will be hopefully the chronicle of how I took this orphan team from the worst team I've ever seen in my life to hopefully a contender at some point.
So I take it had the 101 because it earned it and not because someone traded for it in the past.
Yes, it had all of its original picks. It has Jaden Daniels and CeeDee Lamb, and that's really it. Mm-hmm. It has Charbonnet. Well, it had Charbonnet, Javonte Williams. The problem was at one point it had JSN at the start of last season, and the previous owner traded JSN away.
Oh dear.
For Jake Browning because it's a Superflex league, so when they needed.
Well, that's why they have the 101.
And that's why they needed to get replaced because they kind of got ridiculed and I think left the league because they realized, I'm going to get ridiculed for this. But it's a great league, so I'm hoping to, make some changes and, again, trade away the 101's a big move, but I think it works out in my favor, which we'll get into and go from there. So, yes, definitely earned the 101 on that level.
So what prompted you to adopt this particular orphan roster? Because obviously there's lots of orphans that are out there, but you got this one. So what was the thought process there?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm a small number of leagues guy. This is my fourth real managed. I don't really know my second managed league. So I'm in the Dynasty League. I have a redraft league with my family. Obviously, I do Scott Fish Bowl, Warrior Bowl, some of these other charity leagues. And I have one at church and one at work. And then Ryan Kennedy reached out to me on Twitter and said, hey, we're looking for someone to take over this team. Would you want it? And so he's like, hey, this is the team. This is what they got. your fees covered this year. It was week 11. It's like your fees covered for this year. Basically it's $20. It's a great group of people from Twitter. These are the people in it, and I knew a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, so I didn't see the message right away. So I eventually got back to him and said, yeah, if it's still available, I'll take it. He goes, yeah. He goes, I only offered it to you. He's like, we were talking about owners. You were the name that came up, and we wanted you in the league. He's like, me and Ryan talked quite a bit.
Yeah, Ryan's
and so it was really one of those things. Like, if it wasn't for Ryan, I wouldn't have done it. It is a great group of people in the league, very active in terms of message boards, trade offers. Like I said, I've made 3 trades in the past month, and I think there's been 7 or 8 other trades in the past month of various forms. So that's really it was knowing that Ryan. I felt honored that Ryan thought of me, and that people in the league, as soon as he told him, like, yeah, Dustin's joining, he told me, he's like, yeah, people like messaged me and said, oh, this is going to be a great addition. A couple of them reached out to me on Twitter and on Sleeper and was like, hey, we're happy to have you in the league. This is going to be so cool. A couple of them I talked to on Twitter before. So it was just seemed like a great group of people to join, which I think for me is a big part of fantasy, is the community aspect of it.
Yeah, I know Ryan very well. He's in one of my crazy startup leagues from last year. We tried to stick a bunch of concepts together, like point for first down and best ball and managed and fab and all these things, and sort of made it go through for year one. He's been a great member of that league, so I can certainly understand that. Yeah, I think that's really probably the most ideal way, I think, of picking up an orphan, right? It's having someone reach out to you and say, hey, here's the situation. This is the group we got here. And I often look at orphans. To me, are kind of that gateway drug that gets you into Dynasty. You've got maybe 1 Dynasty league now, and you'll have 10 by 3 years from now, because that itch, once it starts, is going to be difficult to scratch again. I know that's certainly what happens.
Yeah, and for me, it's people say, oh, I like the startup draft. To me, an orphan is just like a startup draft, just in a different mode. Like, you have no affinity to the players on this team. They're all expendable. You don't like them. You didn't draft them, so you have no real ties to them. Maybe there's guys you like on there, maybe there's guys you don't, but you can trade whatever you want and kind of start over, right? No one in fantasy football is unattainable. The price might be super high, and it might be more than you want to pay, but they are obtainable. It's just a matter of if you want to get them. I mean, there is a flavor to startup drafts, but I think taking over an orphan is just also a different skill set. It's a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Like I said, I took over week 11. I'm enjoying it so far.
Oh, good. So you had a little bit last season, and you've had this whole offseason. So you actually had to step in and start setting lineups with whatever you had, and make those kinds of decisions right off the bat. Yeah,
which was really tough because quarterback-wise, it's a super flex league, and it had Jaden Daniels,
Browning, clearly. They had Jake Browning,
who wasn't playing at that point. I had Dylan Gabriel, who had gotten benched at that point. Jalen Milroe, who wasn't starting. It had Spencer Rattler, who wasn't playing. Will Levis, Max Brosmer. Like, I was just trying to just cobble together a starting quarterback at some point. It was bad. And that's where I looked at it and go, man, if it had Jaden Daniels, this team probably is not horrible. That's when I was like, well, let me go see what some pieces I'd want. Well, what's JSN doing? Oh, we traded away JSN. Oh, that's a horrible trade. Okay. Now I understand. And so it was just a simple, start up and just, hey, submit lineups. But like at that point, the 101 was pretty much locked in. I was, the playoffs were pretty much, week 11. I think the playoffs started in 14. So there was a couple weeks left before the playoffs started. It was, you're already getting the 101 because you're the worst team.
Yeah.
You'd have to really screw it up to not get the 101. So tried to make some moves. I ended up trading Ramondre Stevenson to the guy who won the championship, like the week of the championship. He needed a running back. I got a 3rd round pick for him. I traded to him, and he'd end up not playing Ramondre Stevenson anyway, but he still won the championship. So I was like, okay, I got rid of one aging asset. Go from there. And I still have I have David Montgomery, I have a couple other guys. So yeah, I started right away with having to set lineups and trying to make trades right away. It was a little harder in season to make trades. It seems like the off season is a lot easier for that now.
Yeah, that is certainly the case. Although at least if you're rebuilding and you knew that right off the bat, you already have that sort of mindset of, my older veterans, if they're producing, I need to move them if I can, and I've got a natural group of people to buy those, which are the contenders, who may be one piece away, and I may just happen to have it when I myself am like 10 pieces away. So, so you traded Ramondre. What was that? What was that package? How does that?
It was just Ramondre for a 3rd round pick, which ended up being the 312 now. It was just he needed a running back. I thought he needed a running back for the championship game. He had someone who got injured. I think he had someone who was questionable to play. So I was like, I'll give you Ramondre for a 3rd round pick. It'll help you win the championship. I get Ramondre off my roster. I get a 3rd rounder. So that was, it was part of that was like that week 11 to the end of the season was just, hey, let me talk to people about trades and kind of start building relationships, because I didn't have much relationship with a lot of them other than like, talking on Twitter about random stuff. But this was like, hey, what do you think about this player? Kind of get a feel for where they are. So it was nice to kind of have that little bit of last season to do that.
I think that's important for folks who are thinking about an orphan. In a lot of cases, we don't know the people that we're getting into a league with in that situation, especially if we find this orphan through League Safe or through Twitter or through, an online forum. We may know people in that online community as we would know people in an online community, but we don't know the people. I'm one of the Dynasty leagues I've been in for several years. I know I've gotten to know who these people are, but I couldn't pick a single one of them out of a police lineup to save my life. Yeah, 5 people in the lineup, I'd have a 20% chance of hitting the guy that's in the league.
Oh, there's my Dynasty league. We've been doing that for 6 years. And there's a guy, we just call him Logo because his team name is like Logo 577. I don't know his real name. I know he's told me his real name, but we all just call him Logo because that's his team username on Sleeper.
Yeah.
And that's what he goes by. So it's like, I don't know your real name. Maybe I know your first name, but not your last name. Me and my buddy in the league, we have one guy's like Shermanator. So we call him Shermy, like for short. It's like, did you see what Shermy said there? So it's just like you make nicknames for each other in the league. So, you don't really know them, which is hard. I think you have to know one person usually in the league just to really feel comfortable about the league and know that it's. But you go through League Safe, they're reputable. They're not like scamming you. But you also want to like have some connection in the league. I feel to just have some sort of like sense of like, hey, what's the lowdown on this league? Like, what's it like? Right? Because worst thing you want to do is get in a league that's like inactive. Right. I saw a post from someone who was like, yeah, we had, guy basic commissioner league was like, hey, this league hasn't had any trades this past year. Like, what's going on? We need to pick up our activity. Like, it's dead. Because that's what's going to kill a league is that it's just, there's no activity and people don't feel that sense of community is going to kill your league more so than uneven teams. The lack of community will kill a Dynasty league faster than anything.
Yeah. And one of the things I know I certainly look for as I see, Dynasty leagues that are out there that are looking for people, it's like, how many are they looking for? If they're looking for one, that's usually a pretty good sign that the league's pretty stable. If they're looking for 3 or 4 in a 12-team league, there's some dynamics there that you probably would want to know about, or this is not going to be the most pleasant experience in fantasy football that you're going to have.
Yeah, right. And why do the people leave? Did they get kicked out, or they just, were they inactive so you got kicked out, or they just get, was there some sort of league drama? Was there, a really bad trade like JSN for Jake Browning that made him, made kind of people leave? Like, what's the drama and why do people leave? It is also super important. So that's why knowing someone is important, because then you can kind of get that backstory. But yeah, you don't want to see a high turnover in a league. You don't want to join a league that's looking for 4 managers in a 12-team league. Like, just let that league go.
Yeah, and you should always, because I know I do this. If I am interested in an orphan, I always do reach out to that commissioner and just see. Yeah. If nothing else, you get kind of a sense of how that commissioner is going to communicate, how responsive they are. How honest they might be or might not be. I mean, I can't tell exactly how honest they are, but if they go into some detail about what happened, then that's a good sign of openness and transparency. If they say, just stuff happens, then
it's like, okay, yeah,
all right, well, good luck.
Thanks so
probably
much. Not for you. Yeah. Right, and that's the thing. If you're looking for a league and you're like, maybe I do an orphan, I think it's great to take orphans. Like League Safe has a huge posting of them, but I do think adopting an orphan it's just a different skill set, and making sure you're getting a reputable one is huge. And finding the right commissioner that has good communication and will be upfront with you at least a little bit about what's happening is good to know. I mean, right? You want to know all the league idiosyncrasies. Obviously you're going to look over the scoring format, the rules, but also like, is there any sort of weird quirks in the league that you just don't know? Like, hey, this guy's a big Giants fan. That's why he has all the Giants. Like my team I took over had CeeDee Lamb, Javonte Williams, Jake Ferguson, Kevontae Turpin, and I think Cedric. Like another, he had like 5 or 6 Cowboys. So it's like, okay, was that person just a Cowboys fan? So now it's like, well, how do I unconsolidate that and get away from having all the Cowboys, right, and diversify a little bit? So right, there's some idiosyncrasies you might want to know and see if someone will tell you that. Like my other Dynasty league was a guy who's a huge Chargers fan. We all know it. So we all know we can kind of charge a little more for Chargers players when he wants to trade with us because we know he wants them.
Yeah, so we know we have that draft pick coming up and there's a Charger on the board. We should just take him because.
Well, and also like you're not going to be able to go get Lad McConkey from him. He's just not going to trade him.
Right.
Like that's his guy. So.
Yeah, you said a moment ago anybody's havable with the right price. No, actually, some folks are not.
Some folks it's not. Yeah,
Malik Neighbors in the hands of a Giants fan. Or in a league that I'm in, it's in the hands of an LSU fan. So there is there's no prying Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, unless you're gonna super duper overpay. Yeah.
Yeah, he was contending for a league title, and of course, Neighbors is on the shelf. So I was offering all kinds of assets that are performing now, and he's like, nope.
Yeah.
So we've kind of danced around this a little bit, but are there any just like oh hell no factors where you look at a league and you say to yourself, this is not for me?
I think if it's got a high turnover rate, so maybe they're only looking for 1 or 2 people this year, but like, hey, did you guys have to look for 1 or 2 people last year? And then combine that with a high entry fee. Because I find the high entry fees is great for people to stay active that year, but then it's like, well, do I really want to be in this $50, $100 league? And so they're more apt to leave because it's a high price. Most people aren't going to rebuild for $100 a year for 3 years. They're not going to just waste $300 to try to hopefully win, a prize pool that's, in a 12-team league, the prize pool is what, $700? They're already in the hole $300-$400 before they even win. So, like, even if they win, they're basically breaking even. So it's just going to be harder for them. So they're not going to stick around as long with that price. Right. And there's some rules that I think need to go into that. I think you have to pay for any picks that you trade away, like any future years. I think you have to prepay. And that prevents a lot of this, pump and dump type stages where they're going to trade all their picks for 1 year and then dip out and you leave an orphan that's horrible and you can't replace. So for me, it's definitely, high turnover with the high entry fee is a big red flag.
You hit it kind of on a couple things on the head there. One, I think, is you definitely don't want to be the ATM machine for the league. If that's what they're looking for, then you shouldn't volunteer to be that. And also, I think you should negotiate if they're not already saying, hey, your first year's dues are already paid for. You should negotiate for that because you don't know exactly what you're getting into. And, there needs to be, especially if it's if it's $20, whatever, but if it's $50 or $100 or something, and you're willing to do that on a basis across some leagues, then it's, I like having that 1 year of cushion of kind of I wouldn't say a probation period, but a feeling out period to see if this is for me before I invest my own cash into it.
And I think if you're listening and you are a commissioner or in a dynasty league that's looking for someone to take over an orphan team, like propose that, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, our buy-in's $50 and we're looking for someone to take over this horrible team. Every owner puts in like $5, right? $5, right? It's a $5 extra fee and you guys cover that orphan's fee for 2026. Or hey, everybody puts in $10 and we cover for the next 2 years. Whatever it is to kind of make it more appealing. And this, you ask me if you can go, hey, another $5 and we get a good owner to take over this team. Okay, cool. I'll do it. You can tell me $10. Like, okay, cool. Like for $50, yeah, it's worth it to get a good owner that's going to stick around for 2 years. Because if I'm getting to play for free for 2 years, I'm in. Right.
Yeah, and you also said the prepayment of future draft picks I think is also something that's
if you trade 2027 or 2028 pick, you should have to pay for those years.
Yeah.
Right, and that's why League Safe is great because you can set up every year in League Safe and just the dynasty that I got and he's like, hey, here's the link, no rush to pay, but here's the 27 link, here's the 28 link. Okay, cool. I won my other dynasty. I had money in League Safe. Here you go, ding bing, done. I'm set for 2 years.
Yeah, and for those who may not be familiar with it, LeagueSafe is a site that also handles cash. So that, for example, instead of paying the commissioner directly, you actually put it into an account with this third party called LeagueSafe, and there's rules into how that's managed, and that to me is always a sign of legitimacy.
Yeah, LeagueSafe's great because it has the league has to, I think majority of the league has to approve any payouts, so he can't just pay out whoever he wants, whatever he wants. It's it's not like the commissioner's just accepting it through PayPal or Venmo and then, sitting on that. Let's just face it, they're not just sitting on that money. They're spending that money and then they go, I'll just pay it off later. And then you're waiting for payments. This League Safe allows you to pay right away when league's over. It's just a great, reliable source, great asset for all dynasty, for all, football leagues managed, season leagues, dynasty leagues, whatever it is. That's a great resource to have.
Yep. And they have a classified section for folks who are looking for leagues and folks and leagues who are looking for managers both. So go both ways on that.
And sometimes they run discounts too. Like, these leagues are, 10% off or 50% off or whatever it is. So
yeah. So do some shopping on that because this is the time of year when a lot of orphans are available and different sites are running different specials on them. Just be sure you kind of get a sense of what you're getting into before you do that. And one of those too, I think, is you should be able to see the roster before you take over. If they're not going to show you that, then that to me that's a ho hell no for me. I mean, I need to be able to see what I'm getting into. So when you see that, you're like, so what in a bad roster is appealing? Like, aside from Ryan asking you to do this in this league, which I would say yes to Ryan, no matter how bad the team is. But what about the roster, if anything was appealing? Was it just purely the challenge, or do you see paths forward with the assets that you have?
Yeah, I think there has to be the challenge appeal was something, but for me, I'm always looking for cornerstone players or the ability to acquire cornerstones, right? So you tell me I might not have cornerstones, but I've got 3 first-round picks next year. Okay, that gives me the ability to get them, or I have an abundance of second-round picks that I can trade. This team specifically, it had Jaden Daniels, CD Lamb. I was like, okay, those are cornerstone players that I can bank on for the next 3 to 5 years.
Yep.
And I have my first round pick. I had all my picks. I was like, all right, I'm going to have the 101. So it's like, that's 3 starters right there that I can bank, build my team around. Everyone else I can trade away and get comparable pieces and maybe some lottery tickets. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for cornerstone pieces on the roster. That's what really made this team appealing, was like I had some cornerstone pieces in Daniels and Lamb. Even though I don't love CD Lamb, like I'd love, I'd love to trade CD Lamb for like a comparable piece. It's just, most people aren't going to just make a trade just because they like a player different than another player. But, that's a cornerstone piece. That's a set it and forget it player on my roster. And you have to have, if you're starting 10 players, you have to have 3 of those on your roster to really make it work.
Yep. What do you think? Do you think there is ever a point when a roster is just too far gone?
I definitely think there's a part where it's too far gone. Again, if they don't have the ability to acquire picks, we have a team in this league that I'm like, I don't know where they're acquiring cornerstone pieces, because they've already traded their first in 2026 and 2027. And they just, for whatever reason, made some bad trades and they didn't work out well, or they just picked the wrong players. I just it is probably too far gone. That's why I've already talked to people like, hey, if they drop out after this year, do we just consolidate down to a 10 team and have a supplemental draft between this, if this team and this other team drop out, do we just have a supplemental draft and just go, hey, we're going 10 teams? And, if we lose 2 teams, I'm going, let's just go to 10. We'll do a supplemental draft with those players, their players and picks, in this whatever draft they traded. So we do 27 picks and their players and have a draft and go from there. There are chances where it's too far gone. Or you just have to go in the mindset of, it's just going to be a longer rebuild. And I always tell people, like, fantasy should be fun, and whatever fun is for you. Some people love to trade. John McGlynn loves to trade. John McGlynn makes a bazillion trades every day just because he likes to trade. And that's what's fun for him. So if that's fun for him and he's having fun doing it, then he's having fun. Mm-hmm. Most people, winning is fun, so they want to win. And that's what they're going to shoot for. So maybe taking over that team is not good. But if you just want to trade, then trade. If trading's fun, then have fun. If just being part of community is fun and you don't care about winning or losing and you don't care about your team, you just want to be part of a community and that's fun for you, then that's fine. Just know that your team sucks and it's not going to be any better anytime soon. But as long as you're having fun, I don't care. As long as you're active and you're having fun and you're a positive part of the league community and the fantasy community as a whole, that's fine. Whatever makes fantasy fun for you, go ahead and do it.
What I think we've hit on it, but what do you think that is the one thing that managers really underestimate about their orphans when they take them on?
I think they underestimate the league that they're going into, and that the league is going to be like, do you favors, right? Your league is not going to do you any favors. They're going to treat you kind of like they treated the old owner, as like you're the moron of the league for the most part, right? Like they're going to offer you trades that make no sense for you, right? In my league, they were offering me a ton of like older players. And I was like, I don't want older. Why would you think I want older players? Like, I'm clearly rebuilding. What makes you think I want this older player who's going to produce this year and maybe next year? I want young picks, young players or picks. They're also going to test the waters with your football knowledge a little bit. Like, hey, you might get an offer for David Montgomery and he might be worth a 2nd round pick. They're going to offer you a 4th round pick. Just to see if you take it, to see where you're at, competitive wise in your evaluations. They're going to test the waters. I think people also underestimate the energy it takes. Like, you have to be active. You have to be the guy to go out there and offer trades. You have to be the person who's talking to leagues. I think in every league you have to send like, hey, you have to send a message to every owner. Hey, happy to be here. Is there someone on my team you're looking for? And start that conversation. Just don't expect your league mates to help. Don't expect them to be like, you're new here. Here's this guy, and I'll give it to you for a deal. No, they're going to try to swindle you left and right because they want to know what they can get away with you. It's just the nature of Dynasty that they want to see what they can get. So you have to really express how much time there is. And right, negotiations are going to be hard because you don't know how they're evaluating players. In a league where I've been in for 5 years, I know how this guy roughly, these league mates evaluate players. The new league, I have no clue how you evaluate players. Where do you see Ashton Denty? Is he the third best running back, or is he the 10th best running back to you? Who knows? Like, is Puka the one? Is Jamar Chase the one? Who's, is JSA a top guy? Is he a second tier guy? Jalen Hurts, is he a top tier quarterback? Is he second? Like, who knows where they're evaluated? So you have to feel that out where these guys evaluate these players, especially players with question marks, in terms of future or production. And so it just takes a lot of energy. And I think a lot of people underestimate the energy it takes in. And no one likes losing. I get it. It might not be what drives your fun, but like losing still does suck when you get up every week and you go, I lost again. Every Monday or Tuesday, you're going, I lost again. And it's draining. So it can be joy sucking, but just the energy it takes to manage an orphan team is something I think gets underestimated quite a bit.
Yeah. It's like, well, I'm starting Dante Thornton and my flex again. Yay!
Yeah. Yeah. You're starting the guys that you don't feel great about. Yes.
Yeah. I think you hit it though. I mean, how active it is, to me, one of the things I like to do, especially if the platform allows it, is go back and look at the trading history of the league, see what these folks have done before, and look at the draft history as well. And that answers some of those kinds of questions, because when you walk into a tank of 11 fish, they might all be sharks, and they hopefully are not, but they might be initially because you're fresh fish. Yeah. And we need to, if I don't take advantage of you, someone else is going to, so I might as well try. So I think, and to me, it's a good point you make, in that it takes time to go through all that, and they're going to test those waters. But if that's your immediate sort of visceral reaction, is this guy's a jerk, I don't want to deal with him, you actually are cutting off a lot of avenues down the road for rebuilding. You kind of need to take that first smash reject offer at what it really is, which is a tip to feel you out, not an insult to your intelligence or I want to push you around. It's probably much more closer to, well, let's just see what this new guy thinks.
And I'm telling you, all dynasty managers do it in every league. You send an offer that you go, well, this is fair, but I'll add this piece on as well to see if they'll take it.
Right.
And they go, well, that's too much. You go, what if I took this guy? If you go, I'll take that. Okay, then you knew that was fair all along. You're right. You're going to go into this pool of 11 other fish. They might not all be sharks, but they're all going to pretend to be sharks. Yep. And they're all going to want to use you to boost them up as being sharks. So it is just a tough thing to get in there. You do have to look at the trade history. So I like using Dynatize, which is a new website that's out there. Dynatize.com. It's got all the tools on it. It's got all these analytics for your team. You can see the trade history, trade trees. It gives you a trade grade for every trade. It's got all these insights, where you're at contending. A site like that helps me get organized and kind of look at everything as a whole. Okay, where am I at? It tells me like, hey, I've got, these players are, in peak prime performance. I may be lacking running back. I may be lacking tight end. It kind of gives me that overview. I'm a big organization guy. I used to put everything in spreadsheets. All my dynasty teams, I have spreadsheets for all my dynasty teams. Every team's color coded. I have all their players and picks. So as things move, I move them around from one team to another. So I can go, okay, this guy's only got 4 running backs. Oh, I've got 7. Okay, maybe he's the guy I'm looking for. So it's easy way. And they have that on Dynatize, your whole depth charts. So it's a great website to get organized and kind of get in it and not expend as much energy trying to figure everything out from the get-go.
Yeah, definitely try some automation tools if you can, because it is a lot to try to keep track of, especially if you do several of these, or if you're in double-digit leagues, it becomes very difficult to keep track of all of that. So let's talk about this orphan that you've got now. You happen to inherit it during a season, which is kind of, you have to jump in with both feet into the fire. I think the only thing that's harder is if you adopted it the day before the rookie draft, because then you have to make a lot of consequential decisions with no knowledge of the surroundings that you're in. At least you got to see a little bit of that with a team that you weren't expected to do very well. So you took it over. What was your process of figuring out, okay, what do I want to do with this roster?
Yeah, so the first thing, this is why my article series is fun, because I get to lay this out. So the first thing was like, I just need to get organized and get the lay of the land. What do I have? Where are my strengths from my weaknesses? Again, Dynatize was great for this. So if you want to use Dynatize, Dynatize.com, you can put in code Dustin when you sign up, get 10% off their plan, and you can upload your leagues and sync it. For me, it was just get organized. Figure out what my team is, what I have, and then what everybody else has, and where can I find some other team's deficiencies, right? So I found this guy who's looking for a running back, traded him Roger Stevenson. And that's right. You have to get organized, figure out what's the landscape of the league, and then kind of start making some moves on that. And that's the best point. And then figure out like, where am I lacking and where can I pick up some pieces? And that's where I started. It was like, what do I have? What do they have? What do they need? What do I need? And where's everything at? Because who's the contenders, right? Who's the contenders? Who's the playoff teams that aren't contenders that are going to make playoffs? And who are the other guys in the bottom of the barrel with me? And then, right, because I can't trade an aging veteran to another guy that's not contending, right? Like, he doesn't want him either. There's always going to be 2 or 3 teams rebuilding or retooling in your dynasty league. And there's probably going to be 3 or 4 teams that are like heavy favorites. And there's always going to be like 4 or 5 teams that are just like, they're playoff teams, but they're never really going to win. But they're playoff teams, and maybe they get lucky, and you got to really know who's what.
So you're kind of less about, let me plan the strategy as much as let me see what the market's looking like, and then make some first moves, and then I can kind of regroup from that point. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. So it was really like, where am I at? And so I have this point distribution win threshold metric that I use. So what I did is I looked back the previous year's history and said, the average winning score for this league is 150 points. How am I getting to 150 points? Yeah. So that's part of that topic in my second article is, how do I get to 150 points based on my starting roster? And so I expect my quarterback to score 15 to 20 points a game. Does the quarterback I have on my roster, Jaden Daniels, score 15 to 20 points a game? Yes. Okay, then I'm good. I expect my running back 1 to score 15 to 18 points, running back 2 to score 12 to 15 points, right? And break it down and then figure out where I'm lacking. So my second article, I actually give a whole spreadsheet of this is, I'm really lacking in Superflex. I expect the Superflex position to score 12 to 15 points. My current Superflex is not even a quarterback. At that point was Isaiah Likely, who's scoring 5 to 7 points. I'm down 10 points.
Yeah.
In that position alone, there was a couple of positions where I was lacking, right? And I have Dave Montgomery, who's good this year, but next year he starts to trail off. And, so we're working on just like, how do you get to that win threshold? And where do I need to pick up? And that like then goes, okay, this is where I'm lacking. I'm lacking a wide receiver too, because I had CeeDee Lamb and then nobody else. I had like Josh Downs. I was like, I just can't. If I'm expecting my wide receiver 2 to score me 10 points, and I've got guys that are barely scoring 8, I'm missing 2 points. Yes, you may have someone who scores over, so maybe my running back 1 is scoring more points than I'm expecting, and you can make up a little bit. But that's where I'm not hitting that win threshold. In this league, we get a win against the median as well. So it's like, that's the median scoring. So if I can hit 130 points, I'm at least going to get the 1 win against the median every week. And I'm probably going to pick up more head-to-head wins than losses. And so just figuring out where that threshold is, that win threshold mark for me is, and what the point distribution, right? Based on scoring, right? Tight end premium, your tight ends are going to score more points. So you're expecting more points. PPR, obviously, you're going to score more points per first down. Maybe it goes to running backs, and maybe you have a wide receiver 2 that's, possession guy. So just distributing the points across positions to get to that win threshold number is where I started. I was like, okay, this is where I'm at. And then making moves that increase that. It's great to pick up lottery tickets, but they're not in your starting lineup. Right. I traded the 101. I picked up Isaiah Bond in that trade. He's not projected to be a starting lineup guy for me. He's a lottery ticket. Maybe he's a bye week fill-in, which isn't great. Like, I don't count on him, but it's like, hey, I had no depth. I got a couple depth pieces in some trades, and now I have a slightly better starting roster. It's not there yet, but it's slightly better than what it was.
Yeah, at least until draft night, Bond is projecting to be a starter for Cleveland until they draft a wide receiver, and that will ruin that. But at least at the moment, I mean, he's a wide receiver 3 on a team. They have to throw a lot.
You can only make deals with what you know right now. I mean, we can project, right? I do think Cleveland does take a receiver, so depending on what style receiver and archetype, maybe that is bad for Bond, maybe it's good for Bond. Who knows? Yep. Maybe they trade away Jerry Jeudy in a draft day trade, or Cedric Tillman. Who knows? I mean, a lot can change.
Things change quickly.
But based on what I know right now, Isaiah Bond's a decent lottery ticket with limited competition ahead of him, who's flashed in a couple games. He was a throw-in piece. The guy offered me the trade without Bond, and I countered and threw Bond in, and he said yes. I was like, okay, I get a lottery ticket for free. Sure, why not?
Yeah, it's an important thing right there, man. If you whether it's an orphan or just a straight up rebuild of a roster you won with before and are tearing apart, ask for that extra throw in, that 3rd round pick, that player that's far enough down their depth chart but has some upside that if they happen to do anything at all, they'll pop for you a little bit. Yeah, they don't have to be. You're not looking for floor when you're asking for an extra asset in a trade. You're looking for something that might become something if the right set of dominoes fall a certain way, and most of the time they won't, in which case you'll drop them when you need to. But one injury and 1 or 2 injuries and they get some extra playing time, or they just start all of a sudden catch on, right?
Yeah. You look at
Deshaun
someone
Watson turns back into 2018 Deshaun Watson.
I mean, look at Cordero Patterson. He was horrible for 10 years. All of a sudden, he has one really good year, and he was someone you got off waivers, and all of a sudden, you got an RB2 on your team for 1 year. That's what you need. Mm-hmm. And so, right, and mostly it's young guys. Usually it's wide receivers, but I'm looking at depth charts and going, okay, this guy's got opportunity. Maybe, Isaiah Bonds, that's why I got him. I was like, it's Cedric Tillman, Jerry Jeudy, and then nobody.
And some people.
And then it's Bond, right? And you got, Fannin as tight end, and we don't know who the quarterback is. Do they draft a guy? But they could go into the draft and not draft a guy, start Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is back to his previous form. And all of a sudden, Bond's a flex play most weeks.
Yeah.
For my team, he's a bye week fill-in, so it's not huge, but at least I'm getting something. And maybe he becomes a tradable asset where I basically got him for free, and then I can trade him for a third-round pick. Because you're probably not getting a third-round pick thrown in for free. You probably get a fourth, maybe a fifth, depending on your draft. Maybe you get a third, but maybe Bond becomes a higher third-round pick, or maybe he's a third and a third this year and a third next year. Like you just have to increase.
Yeah.
Minimal increases is what you need. You don't need big swings. You don't need to take a guy from nothing to get his first-round pick. You're taking a guy that's nothing to a third-round pick to a second-round pick, right? That's where you go up from 5 points to 10 points, or 5 points to 8 points to 8 points to 10 points. That's how you win. You don't win with going from 5 to 10 in one jump. It generally doesn't happen.
Yeah. That requires that guy trading JSN to you for backup
Jake
quarterback. Jake Browning. Yeah. That does happen, but it does happen.
Yeah,
to build with, because not many people do something like that.
Yes,
but you do make a really good point about you probably won't get a third thrown in, but sometimes you will. And one of the ways I like to think about that is, what will this guy do with this third round pick? Yeah. I mean, if he's got a roster that's already pretty well set, who would he have to cut in order to take this draft pick on? Because it's something, even as a rebuilder, you have to know where you would put your draft capital if you were forced to use all of them.
Yes.
And I'm not a believer that you should use all of your draft picks or any of them, really, if you don't want to. And you've already traded 101 away, so that is something you could do. But if you were to use all of them, what would that do to your roster? And if you get past the second round and you're like, I don't really want to cut anybody to take a third round flyer, that's the third round pick to go get from somebody, or the one you throw into another trade as a sweetener, because you can't really use it anyway, or they can't really use it anyway. So it doesn't cost anything to move that pick, and you might get something better in return.
Yeah, and that's why being organized is super helpful, right? So you go, hey, this guy's got a good lineup, and we can only roster 27 guys or 25 guys, and he's got 23 guys that he's probably not going to cut, and he's probably going to use his first and second round guy. He's not going to cut that. He's not going to use his third and fourth round pick. Yeah. So again, either at a spreadsheet or using something like Dynatize to definitely see the organization and go, yeah, that's the guy you're going to throw in. Or if you're doing a 2-for-1 trade, it's like, hey, I'm giving you 2 players, you're giving me 1. Well, who are you dropping? Just maybe you want that guy thrown in, or maybe
you're just going to drop the guy anyway. Just throw him in. I do that a lot. I mean, that would be how I would end up with an Isaiah Bond. You're just going to drop him anyway.
You're going to drop him anyway, yeah. So like, why not? Like, especially in my situation, like I'm just looking for lottery tickets and hoping one of them hits, right? And again, it's minimal increases in value, not big increases in value. Yes, I would love for Isaiah Bond also to be the wide receiver 1 for Cleveland and put up Jerry Jeudy numbers. Sure, is that going to happen? Probably not. But if Isaiah Bond scores, if he could be a bye week fill-in, I'm okay with that. If he's a bottom end flex player, I'm okay with that. Like, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for him also to become JSN.
Yeah, if he's a flex player that gets me 7 points and every once in a while gets me 15 because he falls into the end zone, then that's how you make up those 2 points you're not getting somewhere else, is you have somebody who can do that from a lower position.
And that's where it comes to like position evaluation, right? I looked at Bond and said, man, week 4 he had 8.8 points. Week 15 he had 10.9. Other weeks he's 2, 3 at a 7-point game. He's probably going to be at 2 or 3. But if he can go from 2 to 3 points a week to 5 to 6 points a week, with those 8 and 10 points being now 10 and 12 points, he's gotten better than he was last year. He was a rookie, highly talented, coming out. Just off the field issues made him drop to be undrafted. So there's just that increase in value. That slight increase in value was enough for me to get him thrown in. And again, he was free, so why not?
Why not? And when you're just looking at, and I love the way you approach it, just what do I need to get to that median score threshold? Any increase in points does it. It doesn't matter where it comes from, whether it comes from your QB1 or your bottom of the barrel flex spot. Wherever those points come from is what makes the difference. It doesn't matter who it actually is.
Yeah, and I talked to people on Twitter about that because they were like, "Oh, you traded away Genty. Genty's going to score 20 points a game." I was like, "Well, we can start with that premise is probably wrong, but like, let's even if." And I said to him, "I said, here's where I'm projecting it. Genty scores 20 points a game, and Charbonnet scores 10. Right? That's 30 points. The 103 is probably going to be Lemon. Maybe it's Mendoza if I'm super lucky, but Lemon or Tate, whichever wide receiver I want, because it's probably going to go it's probably going to go Love, and then Mendoza. So I'm getting whatever receiver. They're going to score 15 points a game. RJ Harvey to me is equal to Doc Charbonnet is going to score 10 points. I'm at 25 points a game. That means I only need to get 5 points from the 110 to make that trade equal, because that 110 is going to slot into my flex spot. If that 110 can be a guy who's going to score 10 points a game, I'm now 5 points ahead of where I was. Instead of having 30 points between two guys, I now have 34 between three guys because that's an upgrade in my starting lineup. Yes, you don't want to upgrade your bench, but I want to upgrade my starting lineup. And all those guys that I got were going to slot into my starting lineup. And I laid this out in my article of like, this was my roster before, here's my roster after, here's what it looks where I increased. I increased my wide receiver 2 up a little bit, and I increased, going from Josh Downs to basically the 103. And I took my flex from Charbonnet to RJ Harvey, and I took my super flex from basically Isaiah Likely from Isaiah Likely to the 110, right? So I went from a tight end or possibly a wide receiver there to the 110, who's probably going to be a little bit better and also has more years. So again, I got 5 to 10 points more per week in my starting lineup than I did previous trade. So yes, in a vacuum, Love is the best player and he might score 20 points, but overall I'm getting more points. Now, if those points were all bench players, it doesn't make sense because I'm not counting Bond in that equation, because Bond's not going to be a starting lineup for me. But the 3 guys I got are all going to my starting lineup versus the 2 guys I gave away, which was my starting lineup. And it makes my starting lineup better, and it gets me closer to that win threshold.
Yep. Yeah, the closer you get, the more likely things, the more less luck you would need to break your way, the closer you can get to and get past that median line. If you're below it, then you need some combination of your guys doing better than are expected for this week and your opponent's guys not. And that bell curve, those bell curves don't line up naturally in a way that favors you when that happens.
No, they do not. And that's the big thing, right? Is you can go, this guy averages, and I always pick a range that, this guy might average 8 to 12 points a week. He's going to have weeks where he scores 15 to 17. So he's going to have weeks where he scores 6.
Yeah.
Right. But on the average, you're going to be all right. And so I'm going, again, in my league, the win threshold's 130. Whatever I need to get to 130 is going to give me more wins than losses. In your league, it might be 150, it might be 200, whatever it is. You just have to divide those points out. Your quarterback, quarterbacks in this league generally score 20 to 25 points. Your quarterback scoring 18 to 20. You're behind the league average to get to that win threshold. So you really want to get to that win threshold. And I think that's the way that people haven't looked at their dynasty leagues and in general. If you can get to your win threshold, especially in a league where you're getting wins against the median, you're going to get more wins than losses. Yes, there's going to be the luck of, they're going to have the guy the Alvin Kamara is going to have 6 touchdowns on Christmas Day. You can't plan for that on either side, either your team or their team. But generally speaking, if you get to your win threshold number, whatever that is, you will have more wins than losses at the end of the year.
Well, when you first started playing Dynasty, what did you wish you knew that you know now?
Yeah, the weight of first round picks, like just saying it's a first round pick carries a ton of weight. And I just didn't realize that, people will you say first round pick, and they're like, oh, it's a first round pick. It can be the 112 versus the 201. It's a big difference. Even though it's just one pick away, a second round pick or even the 201 doesn't sound as good as the 112. The first round pick weight is crazy in Dynasty. I just didn't realize how sometimes irrational people get with the first round pick and wanting first round picks like that. Somehow gives them extra points because they're a first round pick, when that's really it doesn't happen that way. It's not the way it works. I also didn't realize that there are some people who are rational, who just want their favorite guys.
Yeah.
My best friend, he loves uber athletic quarterbacks and will hoard them like crazy. So your Justin Fields, he was a big Michael Vick fan growing up, but Joe Milton, Anthony Richardson, these guys that probably aren't that good, but he's like, but they're so athletic and they're so fun to watch. He's like, I just want to get my guys because they're the guys I want to root for. And some people are just irrational and they just want their guys. I'm a Bills fan. I try to leave my Bills fans at the door when I get into my leagues. Like, yes, I am a Bills fan, but that doesn't cloud my judgment on players. I'm not going to get them just because. Now, it might if I have them. If I have a Khalil Shakir, I may be less likely to trade him, but he's still available for a price. But there are just some players that are irrational. with their fandom, and if fandom bleeds too much into fantasy. And then there's just, I underestimated how much trash people wanted me to take off their rosters. Like, they just like, I've had a guy, I have Quinshawn Judkins, and he keeps offering me Raheem Sanders. And I'm like, I don't want Raheem Sanders. He's like, I thought you would. And I go, why would you think I want that? He goes, well, because you have Quinshawn Judkins. I go, Raheem Sanders isn't even the backup. That's Dylan Sampson. Like, did you just think I was just going to be like, oh, well, it's a handcuff, so I'll take your trash. I'm not taking your trash.
Yeah.
And I think people, especially in the orphan space, just assume you're going to take their trash because you have their player or you have their handcuff or whatever it is that you just want their trash. No, like you just don't want to drop the guy. You're trying to get something for him because he's trash.
Yeah.
I don't want your trash. And people will try to give you their trash left and right, and they'll try to sell you some reason for it. Which I just like, I don't want your trash. And I was unexpecting how much of that I'd get. Like, oh, would you? And it's like almost like, do you want this trash player? Like, no, but well, you should want this trash player. He's better than the trash you have. I'm like, yeah, but they're still trash.
Yeah.
Like, yes, he may be the least smelling piece of trash, but he's still trash. I don't need to trade you for a least smelling trash. I don't want more trash. I have trash already. I don't need more trash.
Yeah, I don't need to be just swapping around the deck chairs on the boat as it's going down. I mean, I need to renovate my house. I don't need to put different cushions on the patio furniture.
Yeah, it's like, oh, do you want my waiver pick for your waiver pick? Like, no, I'll just keep the waiver pick I have. Like, neither of them should probably be on the roster anyway. Yeah. So let's just both drop them and move on. So really that, and I think there's just again, back to the energy it takes when you're, especially in an active league, you have to be active. You have to match the energy of your league. If you're in an active league, you have to be active. If you're in a Dynasty league, really takes this kind of time off. There's been very little movement, very little chatter. I wish there was more, but like and you can go both ways. I'm over energetic and I'm like, hey, do you guys want me? And they're like, no, I'm good. I'm going to wait till the draft. Mm-hmm. Okay. So like, I know after 6 years in my other Dynasty league, like, don't message them until the rookie draft happens. Like, NFL draft, the day of the NFL draft, you'll start seeing messages. I just know they take time off. Mm-hmm. So if I'm too energetic, I'm then alienating them because they're like, oh, you just bother me.
Yeah.
Or and the conversely, if they're super energetic and you're just not answering messages, then they're like, well, I tried to message you and tried to make you an offer, and then this guy jumped in and made a swoop. I'm like, okay, sorry, I missed it. So you have to match the energy of your league, in both ways, whether they're super active or less active. You have to match that energy.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and it's especially if you're rebuilding, you need to be among the most active, but not to the point that nobody wants to deal with you.
Yep.
So, well, thanks so much for being here, Dustin. This has been a lot of fun having you and talking about orphans and adoptions and how to turn really crummy rosters into at least mildly competitive ones. And then hopefully from there, that extra 3 or 4 or 6 or 10 points you had in your lineup get you from the middle of the pack toward the top. There is really no formula for going from last to first.
There's not.
If you're 20 points behind everybody else, without someone stupidly sending you Jackson's, or someone sending you Bijan Robinson when they thought they were sending you Brian Robinson, which I'm sure is going to happen at some point.
It's definitely going to happen at some point, right? And I think you have to be realistic with your orphans, right? I would say 2 to 3 years. That's where you really should be able to rebuild if you draft well. And I think the big part with orphans is knowing your skill set. You have to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And just know that not all draft picks you have to pick. You don't have to pick with every pick you have. You can trade them for players. And if you're not a good drafter, don't draft. trade them for players. Like, if there's people out there that just are not good drafters, trade those picks for players that you know what they are, because you're just not a good drafter. Or if you're a good drafter, trade your assets and get picks, and maybe you can hit on some of these Puka Nakuas late. But yeah, it's always great to take over an orphan. Loved coming on. This has been a lot of fun talking about orphan and adopting orphans and what that's like. So thank you for having me on.
Well, tell everybody where they can find you and what you got going on.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter or X at the DUnit 13. So THEDUNIT 13. And you can check out Diary of an Orphan or all my articles at FFToday.com, or you can hit up Dynatize, Dynatize.com. Use code Dustin for 10% off. It's a great way to get some analytics. It's like a first-to-market analytics and research and insights to your league and your teams to help you kind of learn some of these things and some insights of how to make your team better. So code Dustin to get 10% off on Dynatize, or FFToday.com for my articles, and Twitter, the DUnit 13.
All right. Well, thank you, Dustin. And thank you also for watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast platform. Please do those things that help podcasters out. Please like, please subscribe, please share on social media. Please let me know how this show or another episode in the series has helped you become a better Dynasty manager. And we will see you next week with another episode of Dynasty Compass.